I'll call to order the Thursday, December 17th work session. First item, I'd like to wish Colin, Assistant City Manager, happy birthday. Make sure everybody knows that. So, do you guys want to sing to him? Anybody want to sing? No.
Happy birthday.
No. Okay, first item on the agenda, December 3rd work session notes. Any changes? Stand as written. Next item on the agenda, 2020 water plant, laboratory, and break room improvement. Award of bid. Mr. Crispin.
Good evening, Commissioners. Jeff Crispin, Director of Water Resources. So this is an overhead photo, obviously, of our lab. Everything that's shaded in yellow is the general work area for this project. This project involves the replacement of old countertops, 2 sinks with stainless steel fixtures, new paint, new ceiling tiles, new steel entrance door. When I say entrance, it's the back entrance. That is right in that area. And then upgrading the floor, we're going to replace the floor with a epoxy, it's a lab grade epoxy quartz floor, so we can have a little bit better surface there. The floor is the most expensive part of this project when we've been doing a little bit of shopping around. The most recent update to that space was actually done back in 1994. The countertops and drawers along the north wall, which are right here, those actually are going to come out, and we're going to use that space for storage of our file cabinets and things that we have off-site in another floor in the water plant. So it's a little bit closer. And so those are going to be removed and replaced with some other items. This is a picture of the water plant lab itself. Most of you have been there, so you're familiar with what it looks like. Plant operators run analysis every 2 hours in the lab, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. 26 years of continued use has caused the laminate to wear through on parts of the countertops, and the composite vinyl floor is cracking and is becoming detached in some areas, and I have some other photos for you to be able to see. Both the floor and the countertops are difficult to keep clean, and the faucets and sink have worn quickly due to continuous usage over the years. A better chemical resistant countertop and lab grade flooring will require less maintenance. So they're going to spend more time on plant maintenance and on testing of water than they are on making sure that those things are remaining clean and waxing and taking care of those things. This is another photo that's very similar, but I wanted to point out that if you did not know, the break area is actually, the break room is actually the lab itself. So there are 2 parts of that larger space. So we definitely like to upgrade the area just to make it look a little bit better for our staff who has to spend a lot of time in that area. These are 2 sinks in the space. This is not my house. One for the lab operator, and then we have another sink for the break area. Those are actually both the sink for the lab. The break area is much the same. Both would be replaced with new stainless steel fixtures, drop-in sinks. We're not moving anything, so plumbing doesn't have to change or anything like that. The countertops would be replaced, as I said, with a better chemical-resistant countertop on the south and west wall, as I showed a little bit earlier. Just a couple pictures of the flooring that we're going to remove and replace with that other floor. Over the years, it's cracked. Like I said, it takes a while. One of the operators, when they have to go in and they try to strip it and re-wax it, it's just the tile would need to be replaced, and that's just not the best kind of operation for what we're doing there inside of that lab. And that new floor that we're wanting to put in is a similar floor to what we have now over at the wastewater treatment facility. It is a very, very nice floor. It's made for those type of environments, for lab type environments. So we're also going to replace the ceiling tiles. None of the grid changes. The metal, the frame above the operators, it is fine, but the tiles do need to be replaced. And I will point out that back in 2017, we actually did a project to replace the roof on the water plant. So those leaks that you see, those tiles that we never replaced, those aren't new leaks. That's from the old leaking roof that the commission had replaced, allowed us to replace back then. We only had 1 bid that was actually turned in. So an RFP was advertised on our city website, as we normally do. It was on the city notification system, so if you're signed up, you get those alerts sent directly to 5 local bidders. I did a lot of work calling local contractors. As you may guess, during the CARES Act and the pandemic time, there's a lot of contractors that are very busy. I know that there's a lot of houses being built, a lot of remodeling going on. I found a lot of situations where contractors said, look, I just can't, I don't have time. There's no way I can get to it. So we also put it out on it's called Construct Connect. It's a national website that you can put bids out on, and that goes throughout the state and throughout the nation. So I didn't foresee us getting somebody from another state, but we did get one bid in from Paul Wertenberger Construction, and that amount was $38,000. The bid that was submitted was reviewed by city staff and deemed to meet all the needs of that RFP. I know before this project, I spent a little bit of time talking with Curtis in our planning and inspection division to make sure that if there was anything that needed to be done, that we were following codes and that those were very important. There's no electrical movement or no plumbing movement in this project, so I just wanted to make sure that that was mentioned. Current schedule would call for the work to begin around February 3rd, and according to the contractor, it would take about a month, but they do believe it's going to be a lot quicker than that. So for the financial piece of this, there is a project sheet in the 2020 budget book for this area. The budget is $40,000. The $38,000 cost would come from our projects line in the water production and distribution budget. If you choose to pass this on to next week, there will be 3 options. We do recommend awarding the bid to Paul Wertenberger Construction, and this would be the action that I would request next week, and I would definitely stand for any questions.
That really looks nasty. That's my only comment. It really looks nasty.
And it's not because they haven't cleaned and
No, I
kept
agree,
clean.
I agree. I just think we've delayed doing what we should have done sooner, up to and including replacing ceiling tiles when we have leaks. If we repair the roof and the leak is fixed, we should repair the ceiling tiles. I mean, I'm in favor of doing this.
Jeff, I have a question. I know I asked Toby, but if you could explain. My fear when I first seen this was, we just had to redo the wastewater plant. Would there be we're 2-3 years down the road that we're going to have to replace the water plant?
The structure, well, the structure itself, our water plant was made to do 6 million gallons a day, and we barely scratch the surface of 1 million gallons.
But we can keep up with standards.
We can keep up with standards. The testing doesn't change because of how we treat the water. That space is a cinder block space. Like I said, it has a new roof. That space is a nice space. It works just well. We have the capacity of that plant. Obviously, I don't know everything on the horizon that's coming up, but there's no doubt that we can test out of that lab and continue to test for many years.
Well, we need to take care of it.
Jeff, this is going to take a month. Where will you be doing your testing during that month?
So the plan for that right now is we could put up the plastic sheeting, and they could do one half, like replace the countertops on the south side. We can actually test on the north side. So there'll be some coordinated effort, but I've already talked through that a little bit when they were submitting their bid, how we would like to see it. But city staff, we can take breaks in other areas. We can move things out for breaks for those employees, which they're social distancing as it is right now. But we can still operate in that lab. We go get samples and bring them to that lab to test. So it's not like there's water that's plumbed in there that we test from and it would create a problem. We're still our operation will just run just like it does. We'll just be moving things around in that space.
And going by what Sandy had said, when I got on in 2007, we talked about doing this at that time. And this has been put off all of those years because there's been, every year we prioritize, and every year there's been something else that needed to be done, and this wasn't done. So I'm glad to see that we're finally getting to it 13 or 14 years later. So
Our employees are looking forward to it.
sure.
And they'll take care of it, of course.
Thank you.
Only, I guess, question I have, because in it list of exemptions, specifically electrical and plumbing is exempt too, but my concern's a little bit more with the electrical. There is a lot of items in there, a lot of computers and things plugged in. You feel comfortable that we don't need to upgrade any of the electrical or have?
I do
anything
feel
looked at?
comfortable with what we do have there. We do not have, other than we do have a SCADA computer that's on the other wall that has electrical and how it's wired in. There is a couple pieces of equipment. We have more electricity there than we really do need. We have, I mean, there's strips all along the wall that we can move our testing around wherever we wanted in that room. And we have microwaves over on the other side. I'm not worried about the electrical one bit with that space.
Jeff, do you have sufficient space for future equipment if you need to for testing?
Yeah, the testing equipment probably won't change much. In fact, it seems like it's getting smaller. So I think we could use our space a little bit better. One of the things that we're looking at is right there in the center, it's a wooden spot where they write down all of their testing and all their results. And we're working on trying to get that moved over to computer. So we have a couple different computers in that space that we could utilize to make it a little bit more efficient, but I'm not worried about having enough space. Really, labs can be very, very small, and we have a pretty good space. And plus, by removing a couple of these counters that are just taking up some of that space, we can spread out a little bit more too.
Thank you.
Moving on. Okay. Next item on the agenda, 2020 water line improvements.
All right. Good evening again, Commissioners. Jeff Crispin, Director of Water Resources. This is a map of the city of Hayes, and this is the general location south of 27th Street and right next to Hall Street is where our water line improvements are for the 2020 budget year. This is a little bit closer version of that visual. This project consists of replacing old 4-inch water mains along 19th Street from Hall, moving over to the east all the way over to Walnut, and then also 4-inch water lines down from 17th Street. So from Hall to Walnut, and I have some other visuals here coming up, and then from 17th Street along Elm all the way up to 23rd and then over to Canal. And the reason why we're moving over to Canal is that's allowing that 8-inch water line to be connected to a larger 12-inch water line that's in that area. This area has been a concern for some time due to water quality issues. High frequency of water main breaks, especially along 19th Street, has been a problem area, and lower fire flows. You have smaller water lines, and sometimes if they're older, they can become restricted, and that creates an issue because sometimes those fire hydrants, if you see a fire hydrant that has a red top, we call those redhead fire hydrants, those are the lower flow fire hydrants. And by upgrading these water lines, not only are we affecting quality, but we're also taking care of any fire concerns from a hydrant itself. This is another visual, a little bit better visual. That just shows 19th Street over towards Walnut Street. With this project, all the service connections will be reconnected. In some instances, there's going to be a meter can that may have to be moved, but we are upgrading those water lines. This is not replacing all pavement. There's going to be some open cut, there's going to be some boring of water lines on this project, but service connections will be made right away, so there won't be anybody that will be out of service. It'll be done in a coordinated effort. This is also Elm Street, so as you can see, the north arrow is facing up there, from 17th all the way up to 23rd and then over to Canal. This has been one of those projects that's kind of been on my radar for a little while, for a few years, that on the queue that we want to be able to get done because of water quality issues. Bids were opened on the 10th of November from 4 bidders listed on your screen here. You'll notice quite a big difference between where J-Corp and M&D Excavating came in. And I'll talk about that here just a little bit. We, city staff and Driggs Design Group, who actually designed this project, reviewed it, and they wrote a letter of recommendation to go to award J-Corp for this project. It meets their specifications, it meets our specifications. That amount of $443,488.50 is the valid low bid, and it is below the engineer's estimate. This is a little bit of information on where we had it on the 2020 budget. You can see there that we had it actually in there around $701,000. The low bid of $443,000, and you add to the design $17,430 is within the city manager's spending authority, and we hired Driggs Design Group back in May of this year to actually do the design work. So that has already been spent. What the project we're talking about is the $443,000. I will tell you that last year in 2019, we did 19th Street from Allen Devine, and we did Milner Street from 5th to 7th. We also did about 10 fire hydrants and a new valve in front of the water plant. J Corp was awarded last year by the commission, and their bid was about this low compared to the other ones. With that in mind, on future years, what we're going to do is kind of similar to what we do with street maintenance projects, is we're going to work to bid out more projects. That way we have them kind of designed and ready to go in case that way we could come back to commission and say, okay, well, we've budgeted 701, the bids came in at $450,000, we'd like to add this block or this street into that project. All these are budgeted, funded out of water capital. So if you choose to move this one on next week, you would have these three options. We would recommend the City Commission approve for J Corp to get this project, and this would be the action I would request next week. And once again, I'll stand for any questions.
Jeff, when you say water quality, is that just because they're old lines?
Yeah, old lines. Sometimes in the area there's not a lot of high water users, so water doesn't move as fast. But we do state samples every month, so we do areas of town and we look for where the chlorine residual may fall within that area. And sometimes the areas such as this could have lower quality. When I say lower quality water, the water's still safe.
Right.
I want to make sure I'm not saying something that I don't mean.
But you'll still have low water users, but the new lines will help.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about boring and not having to tear up the street. Now, will we completely abandon the old lines, or do those pipes come out, or?
No, we would abandon those. In some instances where we're working in the same area, yeah, we would pull them all out, but not where we would bore, we wouldn't actually pull those pipes out of the ground. But on the areas where we always look at these situations where, what is the pavement above it? Is the pavement, and that's where we work with Public Works to make sure if the pavement really does need to be replaced, we go ahead and take care of an issue at that time.
Thank you.
Moving on. Okay, thank you, Jeff. Next item on the agenda, rezoning to 305 Main Street, Washington School from public institutional to residential multifamily.
Good evening, Commissioners. In for Jesse Rohr, the Curtis Dynasty Planning Inspection Enforcement Superintendent. 305 Main Street rezoning. An application has been submitted by the OPG Stone Post Lofts Partners Group to request the change in zoning from PI, Public Institutional District, to RM, which is residential multifamily. The property is located at the corner of 3rd and Main Street. Since 1925, this location, Washington Grade School, has been located there. This image here is the current zoning map. You can see that is zoned multifamily to the west on this side and to the north, and then the public institutional on the east and south, where we own a lot of that property. This is the future land use map. The area identified as civic on the comprehensive plan due to its use as a public school at the time of the 2012 comprehensive plan. Adjacent properties to the north and west are identified as downtown and mixed use and medium density residential. The compatibility matrix for medium density to downtown is 5 out of 5, or completely compatible for the adjacently zoned properties. This rezoning request is logical and continues with the character of the neighborhood, of the multifamily that surrounds it or is adjacent to it. These here are the lists of the uses allowed by right within the RM zoning district. These are the limited uses, which typically have compatibility requirements dealing with design, parking, or buffering or landscaping requirements. Here are the list of special uses for the district, and these require a Board of Zoning Appeals approval, so the neighbors would also get notification in case one of these uses would be up for discussion. If you decide to move this forward next week, these would be the options per state statute. And staff, as well as the Planning Commission, recommends approving this rezoning request. And this would be the action requested if you move it forward.
I think it's great that it's going to be repurposed.
Finally coming.
Yep.
Fighting.
So were schools allowed in PI as well?
Specifically, yes, because they're typically, it's more the public, common, for public schools. You can use them in other areas as well, but when we rezoned, the city back in 2016 with the UDC update, we put all the schools into a PI.
Gotcha, okay.
Got a question on, they have submitted a request form for the National Park Service to consider this to be a National Historic Structure, correct?
Yes, correct.
And that waives all floodplain
It's not
regulations?
It doesn't necessarily waive them. If it's designated as a historical structure, they can go to the Board of Zoning for a variance if they see that's fit. So they have gone to the Board of Zoning already and conditionally approved that upon the outcome of that decision.
Okay, that's what I was wondering, if we should wait until they find that out. But also then, on the back side of that lot, if they build anything back there, will they have to raise that up to floodplain standards?
Yes, any new structure would be required to follow the new elevations of the floodplain regulations.
So it's just, the only one that could possibly be waived is just on the school building, the old school building itself?
Correct.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Is any part of that parcel changing with the new maps?
No, it is well within the floodplain there. Because if you look at Stone Post Apartments, it's 3 to 4 feet.
Yep.
And
Gotcha.
it only increases a little bit if I remember right. So
That backside, as Ron kind of mentioned, I think they have plans to eventually kind of build that out. But for now, it's, you know, it's a playground and just empty space on limited uses. I guess you could call it recreation, outdoor fitness. It would still fit within that zone. Do they have to ask for a limited use if they're going to maintain that as an open space like that?
limited uses are staff approval. As long as they meet the criteria within the limitations, they would be okay to do that. I believe that they're looking to try to split the lot and be able to use it otherwise or sell it.
Move her on.
Moving on? Okay, moving on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda, airport apron rehabilitation and beacon replacement design agreement.
Good evening, Commissioners. Jamie Salter, Director of Hayes Regional Airport. Apron rehabilitation and the replacement of the beacon are included in the 2021 Airport Capital Improvement Program. This program provides federal funding at 90% for eligible airport improvement projects through the FAA. Burns McDonnell has served as the airport's engineering consultant since 2006 and has prepared, a scope of services and fees to accomplish the design for these projects. The cost for design services is just over $120,000, of which the city share would be $12,000. An award of bid for construction will be brought back at a later date to the Commission in 2021. The apron is almost 280,000 square feet of concrete west of the terminal and the hangars. It was constructed in 1991 and is primarily used for aircraft parking. Prior to this year, little maintenance has been performed to the apron. A project is currently being completed to correct drainage issues to reroute water that previously flowed back into the taxi lanes and buildings and divert it south of the apron. The scope of that project is outlined here in red. Assuming everybody can see that okay. This would be the scope that they are currently completing right now. These are all of your hangars. Terminal would be right here, and then obviously you have your parking lot. For the new project for 2021, this would be the scope of the project. Areas of the existing apron are showing signs of deterioration and need rehabilitation to extend the apron service life. Here are several of these problem areas. These produce debris that can damage aircraft and become projectiles, creating a safety hazard for those accessing the areas. The project includes removal and replacement of isolated panels, grading to promote surface runoff, joint sealing, and painting as necessary. The beacon was constructed in 1962 and has well exceeded its expected service life of 20 years. Maintenance on this structure requires a bucket truck as it is unsafe to climb. The new rotating beacon would be placed on a new foundation and have a tilt-down pole for easy maintenance. Location will be determined during the design phase of the project. Tentative schedule for the airport improvement projects begin with the design agreement to the FAA this month, preliminary design report February of next year, final plans and specifications in March of next year, open bids in April, grant application to the FAA in May, and then construction to start next summer to be completed in fall. The cost for design services for these projects is just over $120,000. The estimated construction cost for the apron rehab is just over $1 million and about $100,000 for the beacon replacement. Total project cost is estimated at $1.2 million and is eligible for 90% funding through the FAA Airport Improvement Program. Adequate funds are available in the Airport Improvement Fund to cover the city share of just over $12,000 for the design, or about $125,000 for the entire project. City share is also eligible for reimbursement through the Passenger Facility Charge Program. Commission has following options: approve work authorization number 1 from Burns and McDonnell Engineering Company for engineering services, provide staff with alternate direction, or you can reject the project. Should the commission choose to move this forward to next week, this would be the action requested, and I will stand for any questions.
Jamie, how did the beacon get to be a state historic preservation project? I mean, I've driven by it and I haven't really thought about it.
Anything over 50 years is required. That's part of the grant process. It's required to go through the state historic preservation office. Anything over 50 years, we have to have their, well, the FAA would have to have theirs to fund the project. They have to have their approval to demolish it. A lot of airports actually will preserve the actual beacon itself, and they will display it. We'll work through that in the design phase as far as what's appropriate for that. I mean, some of them do pitch them as well. There may be people who are interested in that, but that will be worked through on the design phase. I don't foresee anything coming up with this SHPO, is what the State Historic Preservation Office. I don't foresee them. This isn't new, so.
Okay, well, I looked at it and I thought, okay, well, it just didn't look too
Yeah.
I think it's still run,
historic to me.
it's still run by
No.
oil lamp.
Well, that I can understand, so, but, yeah,
You may have-
okay. And the concrete that we're putting in, we don't have to worry down the road, planes being too heavy on that.
No, that would all be determined based on the design of the aircraft that access and that could potentially access. So that's based on what we would likely have coming in. Typically for rehab projects, they have about a 20 to 25 year service life before we would go to rehab again or reconstruct. So yes, that would take into account.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Moving on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie.
Next item on the agenda, 2020 boundary resolution.
Good evening, Commissioners. Kim Rupp, Director of Finance. Just a real quick housekeeping item tonight. State statute requires the city to redefine the boundary of the city if there's any annexation done within the last calendar year. We did have one this last year. That resolution is certified and sent to the county clerk, the Register of Deeds, and the state transportation engineer. So the one area that was annexed is by ordinance 3986 is just east of Vine, right behind Ace Hardware off 33rd Street, owned by V&E Properties. So quick and simple, and really, since it's required by statute, not very many options here but to approve it, but this would be our action requested next week.
Kim should have to read the legal definition of a boundary.
New commissioners have to
Oh,
do
we
that.
gotta-
Yeah, it's a new commission. Yeah, I had to do that one year. Anybody want to not move it on? Move it on.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Commissioner comments? Commissioner Melick?
I have nothing this evening, thank you.
Commissioner Burgess?
I don't have anything this evening.
Commissioner Ritter?
Happy birthday, Colin.
You want to sing now, or?
No. I have nothing.
I just want to continue to thank people for their patience in working through the roundabout. It is just functioning very, very well. We've actually had communication, I know, to the individual commissioners. We've had people call the office and talk about it, talk about how well it's working. We had a gentleman call that they shared with the commissioners today that said he was not in favor of this project when it started, but he sure likes it now that it's up and going. But it is all, I'm going to keep saying those same words. If you're in the roundabout, keep going. If you're coming up on the roundabout, yield. And that's, everything
down.
else is pretty simple. I want to thank everybody for their patience, because it is different, but it's moving really, really efficiently now.
I would agree, and I think the people have been very adaptable. I mean, it's been a change for everyone. I just want to touch on what we all seen the last couple of days. Mayor Warshaw, I believe, from Dodge City, resigning from the pressure from the mask mandates. You know, we all dealt with that, and I'm just very thankful for the team we have, the community support we've had here. Just my heart kind of hurts for her for what she's gone through. We all personally dealt with that, but it was nice. Even though there was some really loud people, we had a lot of good community support, and we continued to do that. And you know, like I tell people, the people that refuse to wear them, we're going to continue to refuse to wear them. But you know, our numbers are going down, so I think we're doing something right, and we just got to keep doing the right thing. And thank you to the community of Hayes. We're adjourned.